So, all right. So now you know again why I left society. Because, yeah, it's extremely occultic, deadly, and highly influential. And right now, the world is crawling with demons. And you have to be extremely aware of the kind of demons that are out there. And you can't tell who a person is and say, well, that person's a demon, that person's a demon, because it's all relative to how their energy coincides with yours. And everybody has the potential to be a demon to you relative to their intentions. So it's like you have to figure out how you can protect yourself. And if you choose not to be aware of how this world works out there, then you'll do whatever you do until you can't. And that's fine. I mean, that's why we are not allowed to get in people's faces and insult them and say they're this, this, and that. We can't be discriminatory. Because what one person's demon could be another person's Satan. One person's Satan could be another person's demon or angel or something else. So there's no way to say universally this group of people, this person, that person, whatever, is a demon or a Satan. We're given the choice how we conduct our life and what kind of belief systems we put out there. And then when does the government need to step in and say, okay, this is not okay. And that's kind of the issue right now, is some people are not understanding that they're saving people to death. And so the government wants to give people a chance to redirect. But at this point right now, the way the climate change is, people are not redirecting. So I figured out that climate change is exposing all the different cutters. What do you mean by cutters? And all that. Okay, well, yeah. This is the thing. I've met so many different people. I've been in contact with so many different people. So many different people have written to me, had said stuff, given me their opinions about what I am, what I'm doing. And I go and research them, and I look at their backgrounds, whatever's available. Some are just trolls that you can't tell who they are. They're just hiding behind stuff. So you can only assert who they are by what they say and what they do online with whatever information they put out there. And so I've dealt with some pretty fucked up people out there who have been traumatized, who have been harmed by others, who need a way to channel their anger, their frustration, their trauma. They're looking for an enemy. They're looking for a savior. They're looking to make a difference through the filters of trauma, through the filters of anxiety, through the filters of violence. And yeah, it's pretty crazy when I know people now, because I've been in the presence of, been in contact, in communication with some pretty fucked up people in the world. And so when you've been around some pretty fucked up people in the world, and even being fucked up yourself in some way, but not so much to the point of where, it's the other side where people just get lost and then they pass away. But when you've been exposed to a lot of messed up people in the world, in politics, in religion, even in the sciences, then you see patterns emerge. You see what people do you see their defense mechanisms when you study psychology and study all that, study science, study physics and chemistry and social constructs and religion and when you study everything from the point of view of indefinite life and what caused people death and what caused them to be predatory, then it's making the connections and exposing that in the safest way possible without getting into people's faces. Because right now people are living like cavemen. And you say anything to them that goes against their lifestyle or belief system, whatever it is, it's like fighting words. They want to kick your ass. And you're like, oh my God. And so I'm going to read this. High times. Great. Now, where did I get this from? Because when I figured out that cutters are people who harm themselves. They do self-harm, and then they go and blame someone for their own self-harm, and then they have to go and feel good on top of that. Then people do more self-harm to feel good, and then also save things from their own peers who harm other things and themselves and whatever else, and it becomes just a crazy thing. And so I'm going to read this. I need to read this because this is our society. This is from the High Times. This is talking about Aleister Crowley. This is the Rosicrucian. This is most of our society. This is in the politics, religion, and science. This is all the occult people, those that are activists, those that are in the health and wellness world of harming to heal. People do self-harm and they go look for their peers to heal them. And people make money off that. And it becomes an infinite death loop. And then, of course, there's pleasure in paradise. And, of course, there's drugs and herbs and gatherings and, different rituals that people are like, oh, my God, that's so satanic. But they do their own rituals. It's like I figured out that the system used all the religions to expose all the religions. So you have the Hebrews exposing the pagan side of Mother's Day, but even the Hebrews who worship mothers every day. What's the difference between worshiping a mother one day and worshiping a mother every single day? You're still worshiping something. You're still going down that road, that infinite loop of death and destruction. And the Ouroboros, a snake eating its tail. So what the system is doing is so fucking strategic. I mean, I'm still marveling at how they've done this and how they have used all of us to expose each other. And I have so much respect for the system. So I'll go wherever the system wants to go because I have so much fucking respect for the system. And so it's the 145th anniversary of the birth of good old 666, also known as Aleister Crowley. 1875 to 1947. So all those that are like, oh gosh, the 666 over there in Eurovision, and they have family and they're worshiping this and doing that, and they have their own religion, their own stuff, that they are also a wing of Aleister Crowley's teachings. All the activism, all the resistance is Aleister Crowley. To celebrate, we've resurrected David Dalton's July 1978 feature from the print edition of High Times, republished below in conjunction with Crowley's birthday on October 12th. Come, I am ready, my soul radiant, my mind whirling, my limbs trembling. Is not your being equally electric, clamorous for mine? Come, the lamp also waits, and the smooth purple tube of lacquer waits. Purple. Radiation. It's a blossom, and the vase brimmed with poison is ready as I to my love's hand, to her slim, deadly hand. Slim, deadly hand, right? For lust's sake, let us lust. For smoke's sake, let us smoke. The magical record of the B666. That was from Aleister Crowley. So whenever the lurid British press runs low on copulating peers, Moors, murderers, and mistreated animals, they wheel out that marvel of infamy, Aleister Crowley. In his own day, he was called the wickedest man in the world, a criminal lunatic made by his own depravities. Nothing was so monstrous that it could not be ascribed to him. He was said to be a pimp, dope fiend, pederast, black magician, ghoul murderer, a 20th century cannibal who fattened up children for murder for human sacrifice. The great beast, as he was affectionately called by his followers, was born Edward Alexander Crowley in 1875 in the English market town of Leamington, bearing on his body the three most important distinguishing marks of a Buddha. He was tongue-tied, had 4 hairs over his heart curling from the left to the right, and suffered from phimosis, a malformation of the foreskin. His father, Edward Get Right With God Crowley, was a wealthy beer baron and hellfire preacher of the strict Plymouth sect. Okay, the strict Plymouth sect. Some people out there who are all about repent, repent, repent. Okay, so Aleister Crowley came from someone like a preacher who's saying repent, 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 right? The year of the beast birth marked both the founding of Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Society and the death of Eliphas Levi, considered by many to be the most powerful magician since the Middle Ages. In his own humble appraisal, Crowley felt that his appearance on Earth compensated for the discovery of America. Shortly after his father's death, 12 years later, he had already chosen the demonic path. I simply went over to Satan's side, and to this day I cannot recall why, he confessed in his massive autohagiography. By the age of 13, he had become an inveterate gambler and dedicated his life to what he called the three wicked kings: smoking, drinking, and fucking. Now look at all your friends and families out there. Smoking, drinking, yeah, and F-U-C-K-I-N-G-E. Give me 1 second. All right. So recognize what's going on here. Recognize what the hell is going on here. In 1898, he became the member of the elite occult society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, rapidly achieving the grade of Magus. With equal dexterity, he scaled 2 extinct volcanoes, Ixtacahati and Popocatépetl, in an unbroken spirit. In 1902, he ascended the formidable Himalayan peak of Chogo-ri. By the age of 29, 9 and 2 is 11, right? He had become the magician feared by his peers, an accomplished mountaineer, and the author of over a dozen books and pamphlets, including the flagrantly pornographic White Stains, considered by authorities on erotica to be the single filthiest volume to appear in the English language. So you can only imagine what Hugh Hefner and those in the 1960s, Epstein, Hollywood, and all that, who they took after, who they got their information from. While in Egypt in the spring of 1904, something happened to him that was to make all his achievements before and afterward seem insignificant by comparison. Crowley, dressed in ceremonial robes, was performing a rite unheard since the time of the pharaohs, an invocation of Horus, the falcon-headed god of ancient Egypt, where he received a visitation from a demon spirit carrying the imperative message for mankind. The revelations of the demon Iwas amounted to no less than the end of the Judeo-Christian era, and had his inspired doctrine become the basis for an established religion, would have made Crowley a prophet equal to the Buddha or Muhammad. So they're saying that basically his teachings overshadowed the Judeo-Christian era. So we don't even know, because way back when he was alive in the 1900s, they had their version of whatever that was. And I don't even know where that even came from, because there's always another offshoot, another demonic person. But he happened to be someone of a formidable spirit back then that would be something like a Buddha or Muhammad. But why would they say Buddha or Muhammad versus like, Jesus or Moses? But back then, that was, I guess, what they compared him to. But that's kind of insulting to Muhammad and Buddha, when you think, to have him be on the same equal playing field as Crowley. What? That's not nice to the Islam people, or the Muslim people. It's not nice to the Buddhist people, but whatever. In Cairo, from 12 noon until 1 p.m. on the afternoon of April 8th, 9th, and 10th, of the year 1904, April 8th, and that was the whole eclipse, Crowley received by dictation from his holy guardian angel Iwas the book of the law, the spiritual text for his dawning new era that Crowley called the equinox of the gods, and what a later generation was to call the age of Aquarius. Besides being a book of prophecy, it foretold the coming of both world wars and Hitler, among other things. The book of the law contained what was to become the heart of the Crowley's philosophy, the law of Thelema, do what thou wilt. Although it is peppered with commands, curses, and exhortations, it contains more exclamation marks. It said it is said that any other work of a similar length. Crowley did not immediately know what had happened to him or what to do about it. Okay. Until his death in 1947 in Hastings, England, the better part of Crowley's literary career was spent interpreting the fine points of the Book of Law for generations that would populate the 2,000-year-long age to come. The Book of Demons, Iowa's, differs from all the books of inspired wisdom in that it insists upon what was traditionally thought of as sin as central to its philosophy. Iowa, is that a name of some kind of electronics? Iowa, A-I-W-A-S-S. I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory, and the stir hearts of men with drunkenness, announced the demon from a small cloud, and Crowley dutifully copied down his words with a fat swan fountain pen. So he was talked to by a demon. I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory, and stir in the hearts of men with drunkenness, announced the demon from a small cloud. And Crowley dutifully copied down his words with a fat swan fountain pen. To worship me, take wine and strange drugs. Okay, so you're seeing what's going on here, guys, right? To worship me is to take wine and strange drugs. They shall not harm ye at all. It is a lie, the folly against self. Be strong, O man. Lust, enjoy all things of sense. Fear not that any god shall deny thee for this. And Crowley obeyed these commandments religiously, incorporating lust and strange drugs as a sacrament in a new system of worship. That's the 1960s and 70s. Well, that's even before that, 1930s, because when you think about it, he was like 19-something. He was born in 1895, and then 1895, 1905, 10, 1920, 1930. Now you're seeing where then the flappers, and you're seeing, Josephine Baker, and the nakedness, and the reefer madness, right? Reefer madness. And then you have the golden age of Hollywood, and you have, the Ava Gardners and the Clark Gables and all that. And now you're seeing where this is all out of England. Hello, England. The Beatles, England. John Lennon, England. United Kingdom. Oh, I'm telling you, the birth of all this came from the UK. The demon merely sanctified Crowley's indulgence in all things of the sense. These were devoting to which he came early, expelled from boarding school at the age of 11 for corrupting another boy. 2 years later, he was seducing the parlor maid on his mother's bed while she was at chapel. As for strange drugs, by his 23rd birthday, Crowley had investigated every known drug and had the courage and complete waywardness to experiment with his formidable arsenal both on himself and others. He smoked opium and hashish, sniffed cocaine, took liberal doses of Versanol and anaholium, peyote, swallowed morphine tablets, and shot heroin. He even considered syphilis a drug beneficial for inducing genius. It would be a salutary for every male to be impregnated with germs of this virus in order to facilitate the culture of individual genius. Now, I would not actually disagree with that, because every single time I had to realize some kind of virus in my body that came to surface and I was in pain and I had to release the demons, eating food and pulling everything out, I became smarter. So every single virus that was out there, who knows what it was? I wasn't testing myself for everything or anything. And so whatever came to surface, with a hive or some kind of whatever, it would cause then the wheels to turn and me put together things that were kind of in random order, in chaos order, and put it into some kind of logical organization. And then I evolved that. So that I could probably agree with, that if you hold so much diversity within, trying to freeze it or trying to attack it is only going to make things worse. So it's letting it come to surface and feed it and release it the way I have in my book and all that stuff, and then start applying the knowledge that you have and start putting things together. You can actually develop your own genius, but you have to be able to withstand the pain and suffering. But since most of his experiences predate the English Dangerous Drug Act of 1921, Crowley had little trouble obtaining the drugs he used. He he also had the advantage of a private income. There is something ironic about the fact that the inheritance that allowed him to indulge in mind-altering substances came from the family brewery business. So you gotta love it how alcohol fed into then what we are seeing today. Go figure, right? Lacking inhibitions. Crowley was an ideal prophet of enlightened drug use. So now you have all these people doing all the ayahuasca and doing all the different psilocybin whatever, and they're doing all the different tantric sex shit and doing the drum circles and going off and hanging out with each other and playing with each other and doing all the rave, the 90s rave. That's why I posted that thing about raving and all that. Yeah, that was from all of this. That was the self-harm to heal. So lacking inhibitions, Crowley was the ideal prophet of enlightened drug use. The cutters. The quality and quantity of Crowley's writings on these substances remain unsurpassed. He is possibly the most documented drug taker of all time, recording his experiences as a series of chemical love affairs. Hashish, you might say, went directly to his head. His essay, The Psychology of Hashish, is a study in cerebral overload. At one point, he unglues the word horse and glues it backwards on his own synopsis. Oh my God, and glues it backwards. At one point, he unglues the word horse and glues it back. Oh God. And so we've all been exposed to people who have been exposed to this stuff. So when you're out there hanging out with people, right? And diverse crowds, I found out so many different people, diverse crowds. I didn't do too many drugs per se. I smoked a lot of pot, but not a lot. Didn't really do too much of the psychedelics, if at all. But you are exposed to people who have done that. So you're, by proxy, you're actually taking in what they have done. And so when you have all these different viruses are everywhere, it's from the drug use, of course, the therapies, people's lifestyle, their cultures, okay, their backgrounds, their beliefs, their traumas. And so that's how our society has become really smart if they can handle the pain and suffering of taking on the knowledge and the viruses, and also releasing the excessive, and then also working your brain and dealing with the pain and suffering. And yeah, with all this UV rays and stuff like that, which is not a bad thing, but you have to feed the energy and release the demons and become extremely tolerant to pain and suffering and other people, and be smart and protect yourself, because these UV rays are amplifying people's intentions, and some people are very predatory, and so you put boundaries down. And so in Liber Aleph Crowley, like some hashish huckster pontificating in front of the metaphysical sideshow, honestly admitted his inability to say anything at all on the subject. "Oh, my son, yester eve came the spirit upon me that I should eat the grass of the Arabians. Now then, this may I not speak, seeing that it is involved with the mystery of the transcending of time, so that in 1 hour of our terrestrial measure did I gather the harvest of Aeon, and in 10 lives I could not declare it." Okay, it's a bunch of fucking words to me. Now I can go and try to pick it apart, but he's speaking in what you think about tongues. He's speaking in tongues. Crowley was a tireless propagandist of ecstatic drug taking. His novels, plays, poems, paintings, acts of magic, and mountaineering revolved around drugs. Were created on them, were in Crowley's imagination manifestations of the gods. So now you figure out then what he is exhibiting is probably a type of UV through the drugs. It's like an ultraviolet causing in all this chemical reactions and bodies to the neurons to fire and all, like pistons, right? And so then you can imagine even 6,000 years ago, 7, 8, 10, back to Imhotep, and then Moses, and then Jesus, and all the different prophets of their time, what they were exposed to, and the kind of energy they were exposed to, and even the drugs, to then have them go and write stuff about the universe and develop the laws of motion. I mean, you can only imagine the other side of the stories of Einstein and Newton, Kepler, and all those great thinkers of the Middle Ages, okay? And even those way back in like 1200, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay, and so as their evangelist, Crowley turned on the great minds of his generation. Okay, Cole Porter to coke, Catherine Mansfield to opium, H.G. Wells to hashish. H.G. Wells. It was Crowley who first made peyote in the form of liquid anaholium, popular in the intellectual circles in Europe. So you figure, intellectual circles in Europe, they were doing a lot of drugs. Okay, his most important convert was Aldous Huxley, whom he introduced to peyote in Berlin hotel room. Aldous Huxley. What did he do? I know he wrote something. What is it, Brave New World? Aldous Huxley? Is it Brave New World? This is a different context I'm coming from. Let me see if that's correct. Yeah, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I don't know if I can say his name. So then you're seeing what a lot of the great writers and the people in the conspiracy world always seem to coin or use. Right? Oh, look at Brave New World, Rave New World, right? The 90s rave generation. The drug, along with the 1960s. It was through peyote that Crowley came closest to the drug that his friend Alan Bennett has told him it would open the gates of the world beyond the veil of matter. Crowley, anticipating the lysergic mysticism of the 60s by half a century, wanted to use the effects of peyote and hashish to give proof of a new order of consciousness and a sort of acid test of mysticism. So there's all the Rosicrucian stuff. Lysergic acid was discovered only shortly before his death in 1947. So he died in 47. And Crowley was never to know about his ideal metaphysical instrument, whose synthesis he had speculated in his essay on hashish. And so when he died at the age of 72 in complete possession of his considerable mental powers, Crowley had been consuming drugs continuously for 50 years. So that's why the pharmaceuticals are so strong. And that's why you have these little geniuses in these kids. And why some of these kids have like autism and other types of spectrum disorders, because the system is trying to really pull out all the information out of their brains, and it's causing a little bit of a overdrive and then even going overboard and then causing deficiencies and potentially Down syndrome and all those different types of things. And so, so if they know that all the drugs that he was using gave him such great powers and innovation and talking to the other side, then how do you advance a civilization? Well, you got to experiment on the population. And sometimes some kids get too innovative and they go to the other side and become deficient, and all that. And other kids are right there at the right moment and they can handle that equilibrium for a minute until something happens. So that's why you see so much diversity in the population. Despite his battles with heroin, he never thought drugs as other than highly beneficial substances. Intoxication is ecstasy, and ecstasy is the key to reality, he wrote. Drugs, according to the principles of Crowleyanity, and merely permitted nature to manifest itself without impeding something. For this reason, prohibition of any kind were sheer folly. Prohibitions of any kind were sheer folly. How can you know what too much is unless you know what too much is? He was fond of asking. As he pointed out, his multi-phrenic autobiographical hallucinatory travelogue, Diary of a Drug Fiend, or Europe on 10 grams a day. The only reason for abstaining from anything is to enable one to get higher later on by recovering your drug virginity. So, yeah. When you do so many drugs, you have a high tolerance, then you have to abstain to build then that tolerance up again. So yeah, when people get off their drugs and their coffee and they get the headaches and all that, and then they become pure, then they go back to whatever to get that high again. Yeah. Oh, great. Drugs were essential ritual in the beast religion of Crowleyanity, but with the deadly insight of one who has often made himself a victim of his own rationalizations. Crowley knew only too well the insidious collusion between ritual and habit. His mock catechism of the indulgence, reasons for taking it from Diary of a Drug Fiend, is a wry catalog of human guile, resourcefulness, self-delusion, and looking-glass logic. I am worried about the drug because of my not having any. If I were to take some, my mind would clear up immediately. and I should be able to think out good plans for stopping it. I'm feeling so very rotten, and it is very, very little would make me feel so very, very good. I'm feeling so very, very rotten, and a very, very little would make me feel so very, very good. We can't stop while we have it. The temptation is too strong. The best way is to finish it. We probably won't be able to get any more anyway, so we take it in order to stop taking it. Suppose I take all these pains to stop drugs and then get cancer or something right away. What a fool I shall feel. Suppose I take all these pains to stop drugs. You see what I'm saying? And so when people are taking drugs to stop pain, they think they're actually getting rid of cancer, but they're developing cancer. And so what he did was flip nature. He flipped nature from that statement right there. Suppose I take all these pains to stop drugs and then get cancer or something right away. What a fool I shall feel. Although Crowley certainly never needed an excuse to imbibe any mind-altering substance at hand, it is doubtful that even the great beast would have pursued drug-taking with such avidity if it had not meshed so neatly with his ever greater obsession in the practice of ritual magic. Crowley was a ceremonial magician, like the famous magi of the past who were his teachers. Eliphas Levi, Cagliostro, and Abra Mellon. Crowley would perform carefully prescribed rituals to enlist the aid of supernatural beings in such human endeavors as making money, attracting a lover, or finding a publisher. Wow. Yeah, hypnotizing people. Unlike his predecessors who believed that one should call down the spirits of the astral plane to communicate with the magicians on earth, Crowley held that it would be far better to visit the needed spirit of the spirit's own turf that would avoid the hostility usually presented in visiting spirits who had been dragged from their comfy astral niches at the whim of some earthbound magician. So when people are conjuring up spirits, they're pulling spirits away from their comfortable region, and then you don't know what the fuck you're getting. Not that you really want to be talking to spirits because you're talking to trauma, but in his world, unlike his predecessors, who believed that one should call down the spirits of the astral plane to communicate with the magician on the earth, Crowley held that it would be far better to visit the needed spirit on the spirit's own turf. Okay, so he would go there, wherever there is. That would avoid the hostility usually presented in visiting spirits who had been dragged from their comfy astral niches at the whim of some earthbound magician. Thus, the crux of the magical ritual for Crowley was getting the magician literally high enough to penetrate the realm of the supernatural. And there's a lot of people out there who play with the occult. They have grimoires, they do chants. That was the whole Vampire Diaries. You had the vampires, the people, then you had the witches. Now, I'm not saying witches are good or bad. They are what they are. They play with different parts of the elements in our society and the consciousness and the underworld and the above and below and all that. And when you can't tell the difference between the dead and the living, and you're talking to both, and the dead, they left this earth for a reason, through trauma, through cancer, disease, chronic illness, through murder, homicide, infanticide. You're talking to someone who went through trauma, you're speaking to trauma. And who knows what kind of trauma is going to then take you over and possess you and destroy you and bring you to some other region that will then cannibalize you. That's my take on it. Because I'm in this point of view now where I don't see the fucking orbs whiz past my head on Facebook Live. So that means that I probably closed up the portals and I know how to control the energy coming in and out of my body, and I'm not going to be playing with spirits and the occult. Because those are types of demon possessions, and people do age and they get a lot of cancer from it. And that's the thing with sex magic and having vast amounts of sex, is that it does develop portals that things can come in and take you over, possession. And that's where you get then all the different people who are manifesting the traumas of sex and love and drugs and under the influence. And then it becomes rather, destructive and predatory. And so Crowley reasoned the two human experiences, sexual orgasm and drug ecstasy, most closely approximate the type of transcendence necessary to gain access to the astral plane. The magician, he felt, should prepare his or her mind before beginning the invocation by meditating upon the characteristics of the entity being contacted. The bond between invoker and invoked might be strengthened by creating talismans or sigils with the astral being's name upon them, or by dressing in colors appropriate to the spirit. After heightening sensitivity with a carefully chosen drug, the magician could begin the act of ritual intercourse, all the while envisioning the invoked spirit. At the moment of orgasm, the magician should call out the spirit's name. Hopefully, at that instant, magician and spirit would merge identities and a clear understanding of the astral plane would be achieved. And that's what a lot of the people in the power elite that people talk about that expose this, that's what they do. And so when you see what Hollywood does, and you see with the Illuminati, right, when you're like at the rapping and all the different music industry, and even just parts of high levels of government that people have been exposing for the last 20 years, well, it's what they do. It's what they did. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but that's another side of the world that I don't want any part of. But if you do it on your word and it's safe, and I guess whatever that means, if it's legalized through the government, I don't care. Just don't encroach upon me. Do what you do. I can't get involved with people's situations, so as long as everyone's consenting. And the system is going to have different parts of the world where things are going to be what you won't agree with. And again, you stay in your own world. You can have your opinion about what people do, but let the government figure that out, because you can't stop what people are going to do. Stated this matter of factly, the magical operation does suggest some of the problems inherent in trying to rub one's head and pat one's stomach at the same time. However, once the timing was mastered, here was a path of enlightenment, theoretically available to anyone with the courage and energy to attempt it. If nothing else, Crowley's theory certainly lightened the burdens of the would-be magicians who, for centuries, had resigned themselves to such dismal tasks as saying mass backwards or locating suitable gallows near gloomy crossroads. Magic can be fun. And so Crowley's method also relived the magician of the nagging paranoia that perhaps the ritual wasn't performed exactly right. Let's see, was that 3 drops of frog's blood and 2 salamanders, or using ecstasy as a criterion for success brings a wonderful specificity to magic workings. One knows precisely when the climax occurs. Seen in another light, the secrets of Crowley's magic lay in the charming paradox familiar to drug users everywhere. That is, when one getting off, one is really getting on to something. Similarly for sexual experiments, if one comes and one has arrived. Okay. Since Crowley believed that the only proof for magic was its success, he kept a very thorough diary in which he noted every magical experiment and its outcome. Even the most casual reader of the diaries will notice that Crowley was rarely at a loss for sexual partners or a psychedelic drug. That's Hugh Hefner. That's Hollywood. Whether the former good fortune stemmed from his sex appeal ointment called Rutva, the perfume of immortality, 1 part ambergris, 2 parts musk, 3 parts civet, or from his sheer audacity, he was known to go up to strange women at parties and bite them on the lip until he drew blood, an endearment he termed the serpent's kiss. We may never be certain. Okay, there's a little vampirism there. Certainly the reader will mourn the passing of the helpful American pharmacist, which Crowley described during his trips across the U.S. in 1919. My first stop was Detroit, where Park Davis, isn't it? I don't know. It's the name of the pharmaceutical. Were charming and showed me their wonderful chemical works. They had installed countless ingenious devices for conducting the process involved in manufacture by machinery. Many of these produced effects of exquisite beauty of a land till then dreamed of in my philosophy. A great mass of pills in a highly polished and rapidly revolving receiver was infinitely fascinating to watch. The spheres tumbled over each other with rhythmical rise and fall in a rhythm which sang to the soul. They were kind enough to interest themselves in my research in anhelonium, luini, peyote, and maybe some special preparation on the lines indicated by my experience, which proved greatly superior to previous preparations. So basically a pharmaceutical company. Perhaps the most interesting implication of Crowley's practices of sexual magic is magic's ability to transform even the most casual sexual encounter into an opportunity for spiritual and material gain. Crowley claimed to enjoy sex for its own sake, very rarely much preferring to use the orgasm as a springboard to the astral plane. Okay? All right. Okay, so I'm going to leave. Now I get it. I mean, there's a lot here, but I had to read that to really get the gist of where he was going with this, because it's important to know where all the drugs and the children and the predators and the prey and the activism and the whole worshiping rest in peace through pleasure and paradise and sex and drugs and rock and roll and all of that, and the harmony to heal and all that. So you had to see where that came from, and it came from way before even your parents. Okay, way before your parents. And so, yeah, Aleister Crowley would be so proud. Self-harm to heal, to be rescuer of animals, humans, and children. The Messiah complex is the new religion, while under the influence and being radiated at the same time, chasing pleasure, avoiding pain, and blaming a person, place, or thing for their own self-harm. Owning animals and humans and children, modern-day slavery. People fly their cutters, also known as colors. What a way to go. Do as thou wilt. Crowley would be so extremely proud of everyone. I see people who claim they can save people under the influence of whiskey, using religion. Wow. The Messiah complex is what develops cults, cult leaders, and those who abuse their power like queen bees and king bees, and those who claim they can take away your pain and make you feel so good. Oh, so good. The whole pay it forward movement, also known as public masturbation, is what many people advocate. And so Crowley advocated sex magic, using drugs and herbs and psychedelics and family to justify everything. That was the 1960s. That was the Christian revival, the porn revolution, the sexual revolution, and the drug revolution, and of course all the pot or marijuana and the New Age movement. Then children become the new commodity. How many little geniuses can we produce today? How many hot chicks and men can we develop this generation? And you see what people are doing. They're harming themselves to look sexually pleasing, to gain some kind of hormone that they have depleted. Okay? And so people do things to their body, their mind, their spirit. They do things to their face. They do things to their own kids. And so I said, climate change equals the knowledge of self-harm, to heal, to feel good. Read the whole article if you have the patience to. And I read about half of it. But in this highly amplified and ultra radioactive environment, also known as G5, and the next thing is G6 or 6G, you cannot afford to be on your diets, eating meat-free, milk-free, salt-free, sugar-free, food-free diets, gallivanting, and sunbathing and skiing, because of the accelerated photons coming at you like blue, red, and purple will cause the holes you already sustain and develop from your lifestyle and belief system will only get larger, wider, and harder to come back from. Okay? Aleister Crowley implied, if it feels good, do it. Okay? People are doing it, feels good, and dying from it. Laugh out loud, self-harm to heal. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing out loud, but yeah. Okay? And so that, let's see. So I'm going to go all the way down. I'm going to go all the way down and then go up. So you understand where the whole cutter thing came from. Because again, I told you, I've met so many different people, and some of them I read on their pages that they were cutters. They were traumatized. And they're transferring their trauma onto me because of what I needed to figure out as far as saving my own animal and stuff. And so yeah, we have some different people who are cutters in different ways. They actually self-harm, and through antibiotics and alcohol and drugs and high-risk lifestyles, and then they're in pain and they have to go and feel good. And so I said that seeing the northern lights in Florida and California, all over the world, are harbingers of doom, okay? So I knew that the system was going to change the ways. We couldn't do what Aleister Crowley was advocating anymore. We saw what happened with Weinstein, P. Diddy, and R. Kelly, and even Russell Brand, and all the different people that were exposed for being predatory in some way. Some allegedly, some they've had to do things behind closed doors. And so seeing the northern lights in Florida, California, all over the world are harbingers of doom. The rise of the storm chasers, right? The rise of the meteorologists, weather underground, The Rise of the Weather Underground, Prairie Fire Part 2. Yes, I do see the beauty and the ugly of what's going on. I told you it's only going to get worse. You better take care of yourself. Resistance is futile. Right now, people are channeling their pain and suffering through everything they are doing right now. And I can never redirect anyone's intentions, only my own. Okay, so when you think about the purple and the blue and the red all together, it's chaos, synchronized chaos. And that's when I was doing the whole, showing you the red shifting and the blue shifting, and you put those two together. Red shift is red shifting away from you, so it's cooler. You know, it's like hot to some people. But red actually is cooler than purple and blue. But when you are red shifting, you're going away. But when you are blue shifting, you're coming towards. And then when you have purple, that's even hotter. Okay? So when people are looking at the night sky, they're like, oh, look how purple it is and how green and purple it is. A little bit of red way over there. I mean, red dawn is not bad, but when you have a purple dawn, when you have a purple night, and you're seeing it, that's a lot of fucking radiation. UV ultraviolet rays. But what do people do? They have to protect themselves against ultraviolet rays. And when you're getting mass amounts of ultraviolet rays, then you're seeing pandemics and cancers and skin cancers and all different types of cancers. And even, died suddenly. Okay? And so read that. And then G5, 5G, I figured out that was fucking, yeah, as above, so below. And then the very nature of family and friends is never to evolve. Only repeat the homogenized storyline until the group family friends die in their storylines. If you want to evolve and survive the climate change, one must separate themselves from the homogenization and start evolving to live, not resist and die. The danger of breaking into a new family, friend, religion is to assimilate and repeat the party line and never say anything different or else get attacked or frozen out. So when that culture is about pleasure and paradise and self-harming to heal, to feel good, and be in some kind of like public orgy, which is essentially what's going on, is that people are feeling so bad that they have to feel so good. They're in some kind of public orgy. And if you say anything against that and bring on the pain, they're going to look at you as a Satan, as a devil, which is why being on your own away from catering to the homogenized storylines might be the only way to survive climate change. Okay, so the dangers of breaking into a new family, friend, religion is to assimilate and repeat the same party line and never say anything different or else get attacked or frozen out. Because people are in so much pain, they're in right now some kind of like orgiastic experience that they don't want to get off that high, that train. And when you bring in reality like what I'm bringing, it's painful. People will hate you for it. Because they've done so much self-harm, now they're in the healing process, but not really. They're in pleasure and paradise, but not really. They're suffering. And so that's when you have to leave because you don't want to die with them. Okay? So then I said the whole health and wellness industry is aimed to for those who are cutters or employed to cutters to give them pain and then save them from their own pain. And so then from that, I was thinking about those, the people that were attacking me around my dog and everything else. I'm trying to save my dog. I don't want to put her in the fucking vet system to be, poisoned with the antibiotics and be cut up by the surgeons. Because intrinsically, I knew that was not a good thing. But then, I had to feed her and I didn't realize that those operations that she had would come back as far as having to heal. And I couldn't get enough food in her to repair that damage fast enough before the environment took her out. But I had to take her out because she was still alive. But the environment, that's the thing is how long could you do that situation of hand feeding her, letting her poop, taking her outside and be like 24/7. I didn't have enough people around me to give me a break to do what I was doing. Maybe she could have survived that, but that would have been a lot of suffering, yes. But she was still alive. But that was the thing, is then those who were like, oh God, no suffering. Everyone should not suffer and treat your animal to death and all this other shit. And a lot of people are under the influence of pot. They have been traumatized and have been honest with that they were cutters in their past life and they're attacking me and saying I'm a horrible human being. And they are, at this point, they're harming to heal. And then they choose to feel pain. Why? So it's like when someone harms themselves and they cut themselves, okay, that's self-induced pain, then they watch themselves heal, but then they go and look for things to feel painful about. They purposely follow me. They purposely watch what I do. I embrace the pain and suffering. But they purposely watch my information to feel the pain and then hate me for it. You didn't have to follow me. You didn't have to watch what I was doing. There was enough people that were calling all the different, authority on me to check, see what I was doing. And they're like, hey, that's at the end of the rope. They know the history of my dog, whatever. They let the authority do what they do, and that's fine. But that was the thing, is that we have a lot of people who like to self-harm, who need to feel the pain, and they use me as that scapegoat of like, oh, Jillian induced pain on me, but I'm purposely watching her and going on her page and purposely seeking her out and typing stuff at her and make me out to be the enemy. That was the trippiest thing. So self-cutters or cutters, self-harmers, actually look for the pain, and they look for things to harm themselves, and then they blame, and then they look for things to heal them, and then they call them the hero, but when they're the one that actually cause the pain to themselves to begin with. That's the whole paradox of what's going on. Is the whole health and wellness industry is aimed for those who are cutters or employed cutters to give them pain and then save them from their own fucking pain. Cutters probably represent those who are on diets, cutting out nutrients from their own body, mind, and spirit. Professional cutters are surgeons, veterinarians. Self-harm is everyone who is suffering right now, trying to take away, cut out sugar and salt and meat and milk and cheese and eggs. Everybody in the health and wellness industry is harming themselves and employing each other to harm themselves and save each other from themselves to death. That's why I walked away from society. Now you know why I am the way I am. It's tough to watch cutters, even cutting out their own heart and food. Tough to watch cutters. First responders try to save people from themselves. Cutters look for the enemy while they self-harm. So if you think what I'm doing to myself and whatever else is harming you, you're looking for my information. You're watching me. And you're claiming that I'm harming you. Okay? That's the crazy thing. That's the crazy thing. Cutters look for the enemy while they self-harm. They look for ways to channel their pain and suffering, and sometimes they employ proxies like surgeons and alchemy to give them pain so they can heal, like those who purposely fight with their spouse so they can have the best sex ever. People purposely harm themselves so they can actively watch their body heal from their own self-harm and claim they healed by self-harm. That is the medical holistic energy healing world. Technically, people are healing after they harm themselves or employed a proxy. Then it becomes a religion. Harm to heal, vicious cycle, and then look for the enemy. And healers look for people who commit self-harm and give them things to take away their pain to look like the hero and make money. Vicious circle of death. That's why I stay away from the medical holistic energy healing gurus. They're not going to stop what they're doing. They're making too much fucking money. They may understand where I'm coming from on certain aspects, but they're not going to stop what they're doing. People playing with the occult, playing with spirits. Yeah, it's a whole religion around there. People who stay under the influence, whether drugs or alcohol or even smoking cigarettes. Okay? And so self-harm to heal is the new religion. That's how the system will take you down. That's how they'll take your family down. Examples of cutter by proxy, getting drunk all the time to suffer from a hangover. That is self-harm, and then employing friends to heal you from self-harm. You're looking for sympathy. Taking away food, getting operations, and then employ your friends to sell you an herb and a supplement and a detox, even an antibiotic, anti-life protocols. You harmed yourself to heal. Harming to heal is the new religion. Another example of harming to heal, the system does not condition you for pain and suffering of your own immune system, so they change the climate. You feel harmed. You harm yourself again to heal with all the medical and holistic proxies. You have 2 strikes against you already, and then when you withhold food from yourself, 3 strikes against you. Then the system keeps changing the climate. You harm yourself some more to heal until you're done. That's called hospice. Then people fight for peace, also known as rest in peace, and they advertise that everywhere, world peace. And you can't tell people this, right? They will call you Satan. They will say it's your fault for why their life is crap. And you don't even know them. You had never been anywhere near them. You don't even talk to them. But they hate you. So I just did by myself. You can live in your illusions. That's the Aleister Crowleys of our world. Once I saw what the system was doing, it took me 7 years to articulate it. I did this for myself because now I know there is no way you're going to understand this. The system knows how radicalized people are. So I do this for myself, and I hope some of you get it. Okay? So those that are still, the whole love, the oxytocinized people, the empaths, yeah, they are the product of the Aleister Crowley world of the sex magic. The products of that. And you can't penetrate the oxytocin. Because what's love turns to hate that quickly. And that's huge in the religious, spiritual ascension world. The love, love, love. That's Aleister Crowley. That's the pot. That's the sex magic. Aleister Crowley. See, I could have read more of that, but that was a lot. But I kind of knew that, I don't want to say satanic because that has so many meanings to people, but from what I've read there, that's everything in the 1960s. Drug experimentation, that's the rave generation, the 90s rave. Yeah, raves were huge. When you saw me dancing and it looked hot and I was dancing with those little freaking lights, little glow sticks. Yeah, I went to a few legal raves in the 90s in California. I went to a few clubs that people were dropping acid or dropping E and stuff. I think I did that one time. God, that was the 90s. But that was the 60s. Revisited. That's Aleister Crowley. And so in this environment, the smart will get smarter in this environment. The rich will get richer, the dumb will get dumber, and the violent will get even more violent until the lovers will love you to death. Everybody knows. That was that song everybody knows. And so people have children harming themselves and then look to heal, harming themselves to heal. Fertility is harming to heal. People fractionalize their own potential and they are suffering from deficits, essentially harming themselves and then looking for healers. That was done thousands and thousands of years ago. It's still being done today. The circle of death and life is harming to heal. That's all politics, all religions, and all science. I left the circle of life and death. I just live in the circle of life and release the demons. I walk away from those who purposely harm to heal. I can't watch the suffering. People will justify a call they're harming to heal life, and that's fine. One day you won't survive the healing. You will heal yourself to death because you harmed yourself. And your children won't know anything but what you've done, so they will harm to heal until there's nothing left to heal because you've harmed yourself to heal too much. And so thank you, Audrey, for that term, the Messiah complex. Who are the people who have the Messiah complex? Activists and medical, holistic, and all the rescuers or something. Harming to heal animals, children, humans. Right now, all humans have some sort of Messiah complex. To what degree? Well, look at what you're doing. And now, I claim to save no one. I'm not God or the Messiah. Yeah, I stopped rescuing things because it's a religion. That's when you see all over Facebook and all the people are like, oh, look, these animals, this one was crying and it was at the shelter. And you're like, God, all this suffering. We have all these breeders over here where they're breeding children or breeding animals with really no homes to go to. They're selling these animals and children on the open market when you think about it. And so they end up in these shelters and they don't get a lot of freedom. They don't have anyone to love them and whatever. And so you see them get advertised, trafficked, human trafficking, animal trafficking all over the internet, trying to get you to tap into your Messiah complex. Save the children, save the animals, save the whales, save something, right? And so, I stopped rescuing things because it's a religion. Harming to heal. We allow our fellow man to harm things so we can rescue them and heal them, to harm them, to put them down. And when you have a Messiah complex, you have to save the world and all the animals. And so I claim to save no one. I am not God or the Messiah. And so you bought into that harm to heal religion, you will suffer and then blame someone for your suffering, but you've also employed cutters by proxy. So you can harm to heal, and then when they're suffering, yes, you can get sympathy and social capital and look like a Messiah, even though you cause all the harm looking for the sympathy. Until the system changes everything. I saved myself. I can't save any animals or humans from their own inevitable death because you can't make people live if they don't know how to fucking do it. And I won't purposely make myself suffer watching that shit happen. I won't employ that under my own roof. I learned my lesson. The saviors and the satans will destroy the world, and that was the intention. I walked away from all of that. I walked away from sainthood. I will own nothing, and I will be fucking happy. You were never supposed to own any life but your own. The fact you think you own any other life besides your own makes people cutters, and they employ cutters by proxy. Because then when the animal is suffering because it's evolving and it doesn't have the knowledge to keep itself alive, then you have to cut it out of your life. Literally, you have to put it down. Just like the things in your body, if you don't understand life and how to keep yourself alive, you'll cut everything out of your body until there's nothing left. Those are cutters. And that's everybody right now. And so I said cutters, from Ice-T. I said, y'all, please stop because I want y'all to live. This is Ice-T, peace. Colors. And I was singing colors, cutters, colors. Yo, ease, let's do this. I am a nightmare walking, psychopath talking, king of my jungle, just a gangster stalking. Living life like a firecracker quick is my fuse. Vendettas of death, back the colors I choose. Red or blue, right? Purple. Cause your blood, it just doesn't matter. Suck and drive for your life when my shotgun scatters. The gangs of LA will never die, just multiply. Cutters. You see that? You see they hit us when we hit them. Then we hit them and they hit us. That's the whole action reaction. Man, it's like a war. You know what I'm saying? People don't even understand. People don't even know what they're dealing with. You want to get rid of the gangs, it's going to take a lot of work. But people don't understand the size of this. But it's no joke, man. This is real. You don't know me, fool. You just disown me. Cool. You disown me. Cool. You don't need your assistance, social persistence. Any problem I just put my fist in. My life is violent, but violence is life. Peace is a dream. Reality is a knife. My colors, my honor, my colors, my all. See, that's the thing. That's the cutters. They join gangs of politics, religion, science, and family. And they leverage people with the size of their family, the size of themselves, the size of their gang, the size of their religion, their politics, or science. And that's how they get people to go down the ship with them. So if you can walk away from the cutters and the colors, walk away from that, and stay in your little blacked out room and only go out occasionally so you can get some of the UV rays, so you can get some vitamin D. But right now, belonging to all these colors of gangs of people, not just, Crips and Blood, but also the anti-V, the pro-V, the Democrat versus Republican, all these, the religions. And cutters are also those who cut out meat, milk, cheese, eggs, sugar, salt, and food. Cutters cut out the life in their body. Cutters also develop life in their body to cut themselves out. So they have a kid to cut themselves out. Or they employed other people to do that. Cutters also cut themselves out of life. I don't mean leaving society. Cutters actually sacrifice themselves to their friends and family and children. And so, yeah. All right. Okay, solar radiation. So yeah, it's the UV rays, ultraviolet. And so I'm going to just take a break now because I'm just like, it's a lot. I'm going to do the rest of this tomorrow. But this, just understand the Aleister Crowley portion of it. But I'll talk about the whole UV ray stuff and the ultraviolet tomorrow. But right now I'm just like, you need to understand the Aleister Crowley side of it, because that's where it all came from. And that's in all politics, religion, and the science dogmas. And that's all the pleasure in paradise and people playing those games of staying under the influence, staying drugged, so they don't feel how aggressive the UV rays are. And they'll be out there. They won't change their lifestyle. They won't change their belief system. But at this point, this is already long anyway, so I'm just going to leave it at this, and I'll do the rest. I will stop. I will erase what I have in my thing up to this point. And so, okay. All right, be an expert in yours where I left off. All right, have a good day. Bye.